European nights. Under the lights, the roar of the crowd, and the weight of history. Usually, it's the domain of the so-called Big Six. Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester United, and, well, Tottenham do show up occasionally. But let's not talk about the 2024-25 season, where apparently half the Premier League forgot how to qualify for Europe. Anyway, while it's easy to assume that only the elite graced the continental stage, there was a time, many times in fact, where clubs from outside that glided circle flew the flag of England. Today, we're diving into that forgotten corner of football history, not fully the glitz of the Champions League, but the proud and often surprising journeys of clubs who now find themselves in the Championship, League One and League Two. Yes, those same clubs who battle it out on cold Tuesday nights in Stoke, or Luton, or even Accrington, have their own tales of European adventure. In this video, we're going to explore the best European Cup competition results of current English Football League clubs. Clubs who, once upon a time, took on the best that Europe had to offer. Some made it nearly all the way to finals. Some shocked giants. Others, well, they made it there, and sometimes that's half the magic. From the UEFA Cup to the Intertoto, yes, that was a legitimate European Cup competition. From memorable upsets to near glory. These are the stories that deserve to be remembered. So sit back and let me tell you the tales of the best results from 5 EFL clubs being represented in the 2025-26 season. 5. Derby County, the UEFA Cup 1976-77. Derby County's foray into European football may have been brief, but it left behind one of the most remarkable results in English club history. During the 1976-77 UEFA Cup, Derby recorded a staggering 12-0 victory over Irish side Finn Harps at the baseball ground, a result that remains the club's record win in any competitive fixture and one of the highest margins in European competition by an English team. Managed by Dave Mackay at the time, Derby entered the tournament with the pedigree of a club that had won the First Division title just 4 years earlier under Brian Clough. The Rams were looking to make a statement in Europe, and Finn Harps, an amateur outfit from Donegal, proved to be unfortunate opponents. The first leg, played in Derby on the 15th of September 1976, saw a relentless attacking display. Derby's superiority was evident from the outset. Leighton James scored a hat-trick, while Charlie George and Kevin Hector each bagged a brace. The goals flowed freely, with the visitors simply unable to cope with the pace and precision of the Rams' front line. In total, 7 different players found the net in the rout. The second leg in Ballybofey ended 4-1 to Derby, sealing a 16-1 aggregate win. Still, one of the most dominant two-legged victories by an English club in European history. Although Derby's campaign ended in the third round after being knocked out by AEK Athens, that opening tie against Finn Harps has remained a standout moment in their continental history. For a club whose European adventures had been limited, the 12-0 demolition stands as a proud and somewhat mythical memory. It reflects a period when Derby County were not just contenders in English football, but also capable of commanding respect on the European stage. The likes of Roy McFarland, Archie Gemmell and Colin Todd brought quality and international experience to a side that for a few seasons could match the continent's best on their day. Today, the emphatic victory is etched into the folklore of the club, a reminder of Derby County's golden era, when the baseball ground witnessed European nights filled with both history and dominance. 4. Leicester City, 2016-17 Champions League. Leicester City's fairy tale rise reached new heights in the 2016-17 season, where the newly crowned Premier League champions made their long-awaited debut in the UEFA Champions League. It had taken over a century, but their first campaign on Europe's grandest stage was nothing short of extraordinary, filled with pride, defiance, and a few unforgettable nights under the lights at the King Power Stadium. Drawn in Group G alongside Porto, FC Copenhagen and Club Brugge, Leicester were widely expected to struggle. Yet, with the same core that had stunned English football just months earlier, the Foxes approached Europe with fearless energy. Claudio Ranieri's men adapted their domestic style seamlessly, solid at the back, disciplined in midfield, and razor sharp on the counter. The visit of Portuguese giants FC Porto on the 27th of September 2016 marked Leicester's first ever Champions League home match. Porto, the two-time European champions and seasoned continental campaigners, arrived as favourites, but Leicester had already begun to show they were no ordinary debutants. The King Power crackled with anticipation, and the team responded. Leicester played with confidence and maturity beyond their experience. Danny Drinkwater's pinpoint delivery found Riyad Mahrez just before the half-hour mark. Mahrez, always Leicester's magician in tight spaces, curled in a dangerous cross that Islam Slimani met with a bullet header, a goal that carried personal significance. Slimani, formerly of Sporting Lisbon, had a fierce record against Porto and once again proved their nemesis. The Foxes held firm under increasing pressure as the match wore on. Kasper Schmeichel produced a series of vital saves, and Wes Morgan marshalled the back line with calm authority. Porto pushed for an equaliser, but Leicester's organisation and resilience saw them through. When the whistle blew, the scoreboard read Leicester City 1, FC Porto 0. It was a historic result, their second win in the group and a vital step towards qualifying top. The Foxes would go on to win the group with 13 points, eventually reaching the quarterfinals in their debut campaign, an extraordinary campaign. But that night against Porto remains one of the defining moments. A hard-fought, narrow win against one of Europe's most experienced sides. Proof that Leicester belonged amongst Europe's elite. 3. Bolton, 2007-08 UEFA Cup. In 2025, Bolton Wanderers find themselves climbing steadily back up the English football pyramid, rebuilding under stable leadership and rekindling hope among a loyal fan base. Once a Premier League mainstay and now an established side in the EFL, the club continues to draw on a proud history, one that includes an unforgettable European campaign in the 2007-08 UEFA Cup. And among the highlights of that run, their clash with Atletico Madrid remains the stuff of legend. Having qualified for Europe via their league finish in the 2006-07 season under Sam Allardyce, Bolton entered the UEFA Cup with a point to prove. They made it through a tricky group stage unbeaten, with solid performances at home laying the foundation for progress. But when the round of 32 draw paired them with the Spanish giants Atletico Madrid, few gave Bolton much hope. Atletico was stacked with talent. Sergio Aguero, Diego Forlan and Jose Antonio Reyes led a star-studded squad. In contrast, Bolton's strength lay in their organisation, physicality and sheer determination. The first leg was set for the Reebok Stadium on a freezing February night, and Bolton were more than ready to embrace the battle. The game was scrappy, intense and frequently interrupted by fouls, but Bolton were resolute. Their pressure told in the 74th minute when El Hadj Diouf reacted quickest in the box, steering home the only goal for the tie. It was a symbolic goal for Bolton's style, opportunistic, determined and full of grit. The Reebok erupted as the Trotters held on for a famous 1-0 win. The second leg in Madrid was a different kind of challenge. Atletico pressed and probed, but Bolton defended with immense discipline. Jussi Jääskeläinen made key saves, while the likes of Andy O'Brien and Gary Cahill held firm at the back. A late red card for Tamir Corin didn't derail the mission. The tie ended 0-0, and Bolton had knocked out one of Europe's most dangerous sides. That 1-0 win at home remains one of the club's greatest ever results. A night when the underdog overcame the odds and stood tall on the European stage. It was Bolton Wanderers at their best, combative, determined, and utterly unyielding when it mattered most. 2. Blackpool, the Anglo-Italian Cup. The Anglo-Italian Cup was a unique European football competition established in 1970, designed to pit English and Italian clubs against each other in a showpiece of flair, grit, and international rivalry. Originally intended to provide competitive matches for clubs excluded from major European tournaments, the competition was part spectacle, part serious, with the clubs often treating it as a prestigious opportunity to claim silverware on foreign soil. Though its format evolved over time, the original iteration concluded in 1973, before later revivals in the 90s. Its peak, however, came in the early 1970s, none more so than in the 1971 edition. That year, Blackpool, newly relegated from the First Division, embarked on an extraordinary European journey that would culminate in a dramatic final against Italian giant Bologna. Held on the 12th of June 1971 at the Stadio Renato Darara, the contest was fiercely contested. Bologna, a proud Serie A side with a decorated history, were clear favourites. Blackpool, by contrast, were seen as underdogs, more reliant on grit and heart than glamour. But the Seasiders had other ideas. Blackpool defeated Bologna by 2-1. The goals for Blackpool were scored by Mickey Burns and Tony Green, while Bologna pulled one back through Savoldi. Bologna pressed, driven by a partisan home crowd and a deep desire to reclaim control. But Blackpool's defence, marshalled superbly by Jimmy Armfield and backed by goalkeeper John Burridge, held firm. Every tackle, clearance and block carried the weight of a side desperate to make history. And when the final whistle blew, Blackpool had done just that. It was the club's only major trophy on the continental stage, a fleeting but golden moment in their long history. Though the Anglo-Italian Cup would fade from the footballing calendar, nights like that in Bologna left a lasting legacy. For Blackpool, it was Europe conquered, if only for one unforgettable summer night. Honourable mentions. Before we talk about number 1, it's worth giving a nod to some other remarkable performances by English clubs on the European stage. Moments that may not have led to trophies, but still stand out as proud chapters in each EFL club's history. First up, Bradford City. In the year 2000, just after their brief stint in the Premier League, they found themselves in the Intertoto Cup, a summer competition that offered a route into the UEFA Cup. Facing RKC Waalwijk of the Netherlands, Bradford recorded a 1-0 win. It wasn't a deep run in Europe, but for a club like Bradford, even that one victory marked a special occasion. Then there's Swindon Town, who in 1969 delivered one of the most surprising results in Anglo-Italian Cup history. Facing AS Roma, Swindon pulled off an incredible 5-2 win in Naples. Yes, against Roma. For a third division side to dominate such an established Serie A outfit was almost unthinkable at the time. That result not only won them the inaugural Anglo-Italian Cup, but also etched their name into European football folklore. Fast forward to 2013, and Wigan Athletic were taking their first and only steps into European competition after their shock FA Cup triumph. In the Europa League group stage, they hosted NK Maribor of Slovenia and claimed a 3-1 win at the DW Stadium. It was a proud moment for the club and its fans, especially given the context. European football, just months after relegation from the Premier League. Birmingham City also made waves in the Europa League, qualifying for the 2011-12 group stage after winning the League Cup. One of their standout performances came in Belgium, where they pulled off a gritty 2-1 win against Club Brugge. It was a brief return to continental action, but Birmingham's efforts were commendable in a competitive group. And lastly, Blackburn Rovers deserve recognition for two separate moments. In the 1995-96 Champions League, they dismantled Rosenborg 4-1, showing they can mix it with Europe's elite. Several years later, in the 2006-7 UEFA Cup, they beat Swiss side FC Basel 3-0, again reminding fans of the club's European credentials. And now, without further ado, let's get to number 1. 1. Cardiff City, 1970-71 European Cup. When discussing the great European nights enjoyed by EFL clubs, one of the most astonishing and often overlooked stories belongs to Cardiff City. In the 1970-71 season, while playing in Division 2, the second tier of English football, Cardiff went toe-to-toe with some of the continent's biggest clubs in the European Cup Winners' Cup, and among their opponents were none other than Real Madrid. At the time, Real Madrid were, and still are, a global powerhouse, 5-time European champions and icons of world football. Cardiff City, meanwhile, were a solid, unheralded second division side, better known domestically than continentally. The two clubs couldn't have been further apart in terms of pedigree, but that made what happened at Ninian Park on the 10th of March 1971 all the more extraordinary. With John Toshak having been sold to Liverpool just months before, breaking up the prolific Toshak-Clark partnership, Cardiff's chances seemed slim. Yet, on that famous night, they rose to the occasion. A goal from Brian Clark, one of the club's finest ever strikers, was enough to seal a 1-0 win over the Spanish Giants in the first leg of the quarter-final. Ninian Park erupted, and the victory remains one of the proudest achievements in Cardiff's long history. It wasn't just a fluke. Cardiff had already seen off Nantes and Servette in earlier rounds. They played with commitment, organisation and belief. Against Real Madrid, they held their nerve, shut down attacks and took their chance when it came. For a club from outside the top flight, beating Real Madrid in a European quarter-final was almost unheard of. The second leg in Madrid was a tougher test, and Cardiff were ultimately knocked out after a 2-1 aggregate loss. But the damage had been done in Wales. That first leg win became a symbol of what was possible. Proof that EFL sides, even outside the top tier, could have made an impact on the European stage. What makes the story even more compelling today is the context. Cardiff finished third in Division 2 that same season, narrowly missing out on promotion. While other English sides were dominating Europe in years to come, Cardiff's brush with continental glory would stand as a high watermark, one that still resonates with fans generations later. In the modern era, when we've seen clubs like Wigan or Birmingham making rare appearances in Europe, or we look back on nights like Bradford's Intertoto Cup win, the story of Cardiff City beating Real Madrid serves as a reminder. You don't need to be a European superpower to write history. That night at Ninian Park remains timeless, not just for Cardiff fans, but for football romantics everywhere. a second division team from South Wales, beating one of the most successful clubs in world football. It's one of the finest European results ever achieved by an EFL side, and a legacy that continues to inspire.